Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. We know this past year of Warzone alongside MW2 has been an interesting one. I feel like that's a good way to play the middle ground there. There's been some positive updates throughout the year. The introduction of ranked play obviously is a huge W, at least in my opinion. However, it's also not, a secret that a lot of players, myself included for the most part, would consider most of the core mechanics and gameplay dynamics of Warzone 2 to be a bit of a step back or a plateau of what was Warzone 1, in terms of movement, gunplay, all sorts of stuff like that. Really, this past year of Warzone, as I've said many times now, felt like it was almost a trial period, a beta. MW2 and Warzone 2 were just a very expensive beta at the end of the day, and MW3 is now the quote-unquote full game that we just have to buy again. It is a strange time for COD in general, at least this past year was. But looking forward, having now seen the full reveal of Warzone with MW3, Warzone 3 if you want to call it that, even though it's not really a whole new game, it's just a new integration, we actually are going to see something that has not really happened all that much in the past year. New progressive updates. Unique and innovative things that are actually going to be able to be added to Warzone rather than just this past year of, like I said, either plateauing in certain areas or having to reduce, reuse, recycle on different things that were added in throughout the lifespan of Warzone 1. To me, this is very good news, and I wanted to sort of get into the fine details with this one and have a larger conversation with it. As we get into it, if you enjoy the video at all, do me a favor, drop a like. It's always seriously appreciated. It does really help the channel grow. And if you're new here or you simply haven't subscribed yet, every single day I got you covered with everything you need to know about Call of Duty, whether it's Warzone, MW3, you name it, it's all here. So feel free to hit that subscribe button and turn on those post notifications. But as far as this past year of Warzone goes, obviously, it's very obvious what's been going on. It's a lot of redoing Warzone 1. You look back at the updates that we've seen throughout the year, and I've jotted down a few of them that just came to my mind, real quick as I was prepping for this commentary. We've seen so many reused features, reused quality of life updates that have been marketed as like the main updates for any given season. You look at, from the launch, there was season 1 to now. Portable buys, a feature that we had introduced in Warzone 2 that we had back in Warzone 1. The portable redeploy drones, which are the exact same thing as portable redeploy balloons, except they do navigate into the zone, which is a nice small feature there. But the overarching, function of redeploying through that zip line in game, still a thing that we had back in Warzone 1. Various different gas mask quality of life updates that we had back in Warzone 1 are either missing here still in Warzone 2 or were slowly added in over time. The gulag tokens, being able to go back to that gulag again after having one if you find one of those in game, also something that we had back in Warzone 1 as well. There's also several updates that we saw back in Warzone 1 that have yet to make it into Warzone 2. The full-on lootable perks, individual perks that are lootable that you could stack on top of your custom loadout. That was one of the best quality of life updates I personally, thought back in Warzone 1. It was really cool, really convenient to be able to have, 4 or 5 perks, maybe even more, depending on your RNG with the loot. Bummer that never returned and we just have the basic loot packages or perk packages found in the loot rather. Portable decontamination stations. This is a funny one because we've joked about this on the channel in the past. They literally said portable decontamination stations were coming to the game like back during season 3. And they just never did it. They just straight up lied about it or forgot about it, one or the other. They're not in the game though. They said they were coming back, so who knows what happened there. Floating loot, that's another thing. Obviously the looting here in Warzone 2, kind of tedious because it jumbles up on the ground and it's a little bit harder to navigate in certain scenarios. Warzone 1 was a little bit cleaner with that loot floating above the ground there. So, this past year, definitely very, very repetitive in terms of a lot of the main gameplay updates. Now, like I said, there were a few innovative updates that we saw throughout the year. Ranked, I think, by far is the biggest and most standout-ish, I guess you could say. And that's something that I've seriously enjoyed with Warzone 2. The whole rejoin feature, if you disconnect or crash out of a match, you can then boot up the game again and rejoin the lobby so you don't get completely booted out, stay in the game, and not be a man down there. That's super convenient. Then things like the redeploy flare, that's very convenient too, and that actual function there. As overpowered as it was for a bit in ranked before they removed it, also a really, really cool strat and one that could be used very effectively in the right scenario. But for the most part, this past year hasn't seen that much innovation. But going into Warzone 3 now that we're getting back to, the roots of Warzone with the better movement, the similar gunplay, we're actually in this stage where we can have progressive updates and innovative updates throughout the year rather than just reusing and recycling updates from before to get the game back on the same level. So personally, I feel like Raven has a lot of potential in the coming year with Warzone updates and with Warzone innovation. Whether they're going to reach that potential, obviously time is only going to tell, but I've jotted down a few things here just off the top of my head again that very easily could happen here with Warzone 3, some of which is already confirmed. For instance, movement changes. Obviously in Warzone 2, it feels like you're stuck in the mud in certain situations. Sometimes you literally are, depending on where you're at on the map. But obviously the MW3 movement's coming over. That's going to be huge. I'm going to be very excited to see that in game and feel that in game. The perk system already is being somewhat implemented, as we've talked about before. Just naturally, as your operator spawns into a Warzone match, you're going to have some of those vest benefits and perk benefits of multiplayer on your character, but the actual perk system itself currently is staying the same as it was this past year with Warzone 2 as far as the perk packages go, but there's chances for innovation there too. Map interactions with things like horizontal ascenders, that's very cool as well, in my opinion, giving us a new way to actually navigate throughout the world. That's going to be really cool. Things like ledge hanging, that's returning and whatnot. Attack stance, that's going to be something that we can really use to our advantage in those close range fights. Those are small innovations, but ones that can be really useful as well. Another thing, when it comes to ranked, we know this is returning for Urzikstan in early 2024. We're now going to have an actual larger skill gap there rather than just, being very simple like it was in Warzone 2 with movements and all the new mechanics there. It does create a little bit more separation there that'll, deem some players better than others because of their ability to use those mechanics to their advantage. So that, while it's not like a new feature or anything, that added skill gap with some of these changes is going to be nice to see return, similar to Warzone 1. We've already seen it some in the gameplay that we got from Call of Duty Next, but loot now is a little bit easier. While it is still ground loot and not floating loot, it's going to be easier to navigate loot like when you kill somebody because it's a bit more spread out when that loot splats onto the ground, so it's not all stacked on top of each other. The backpack innovations where you can now carry all the ammo types in your backpack, that's going to be very big. And then also we have the opportunity to bring in some new LTMs yet again. I feel like that was something that was really lacking this year. Warzone 2 didn't really have any crazy LTMs. We had like the April Fool's Day mode, and that was about it. You date back to Warzone 1, we had 200 person BR. We had all sorts of really fun and unique LTMs that came and went throughout the year. Not so much this time around. So hopefully Warzone and MW3 can change that up a little bit as well. But personally, I feel like I said earlier, there's a lot of potential there with this coming year for Warzone now that we're a little bit more back on track and almost caught up to where we were at the end of Warzone 1, just because they spent so much time this past year with Warzone 2 trying to rebuild the game back up to where we left it, which is just very obnoxious. It feels like we really wasted an entire year just trying to fix the game back to the state where we enjoyed it for the most part with the TTK and how things behaved elsewhere. It was interesting to say the least as I started the video with that, right? But that being said, that is going to wrap things up for this one. If you enjoyed, do me a favor, drop a like on the video itself. It would be really appreciated. And if you're new here, you want to guarantee you are always up to date, be sure to hit that subscribe button on your way out. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you later. Peace out.